Welcome everyone, my name is Tiger, and today I'll be showing off this Copper Age starter house I built in Vintage Story. I designed it to feel like a realistic early game survival home while still having a bit of detail that makes it more beautiful than just a dirt hut. For this build, I assumed that the player just got their copper tools made and is ready to upgrade their house to match that advancement. To be fair, copper tools do open up just about every block in the game, except for those that require iron or more rare materials. But the point of this build was not to try building with a small variety of materials, but rather to build something simple that looks nice and doesn't require a ton of grinding or a massive amount of materials. This is pretty important early game when you don't want to be wasting your time building a super complex house and you'd rather be finding food for winter. In fact, every block in this build can be exchanged for something else if you don't like the look or you just can't find that material in your area. So, with that, let's hop into the tour. The house is made of pine logs, debarked cedar pine wood, pine planks, and glass with a slate roof. I use the pine to try to keep a consistent color palette, but you can use any wood you like, and of course any roof material you like as well. There's also the 4x8 chiseled overhang to the side for ground storage. Not that items like stone and cattails and firewood get damaged by rain, but it does make a nice asymmetrical look for the house and adds dimension to the longer flat wall. You can see how I kind of chiseled the blocks for the overhang into that slant with the half slabs. It kind of goes down nicely. It's actually only 3 layers of blocks. This first block up here is actually the bottom half of a block, chiseled into like a half slab sort of thing. And this sort of L-shaped corner bit right here, the bottom bit, that corner, is actually the top left quarter of a block, just chiseled to only have that. Then there are 2 tops of a block, and then this L shape is the top half of a block, and then the bottom left quarter of a block. And then this last little layer is just the bottom half of a block chiseled. I also used pine beams from a post and beams mod. Of course, you don't have to use pine beams, you could just use pine planks and chisel it into a beam shape, and that works perfectly fine as well. Of course, chiseling something like that does take quite a bit of time, so I actually prefer the post and beam mods for something like this, but yeah, it is kind of all the same in the end. The fireplace and the chimney here in the back is claystone cobblestone, and you can see how I chiseled it by kind of removing just the edges. I'm going to be making a mini tutorial showing specifically how to build the fireplace and the chimney, including the interior chiseling that allows the real smoke mod to work, so I'm not going to talk about how exactly I placed the blocks for the exterior of the chimney bit here, but you should get a good idea from this sort of look at it, kind of how I chiseled the outside. You can also see I have this little chimney block on top. That's more for aesthetic reasons, because you don't actually need it for the real smoke mod to work with this chimney, but I don't know, I think it's kind of cute, so there it is. I've got some little clay lamps all around the house. I could have used copper lanterns, but I do kind of like the somewhat rustic look of the lamps with the wood cabin vibe happening here. And I also didn't think that the copper lanterns would really go with the color palette that I have going on here. Also got this pretty nice chiseled wood door frame. Place these blocks around the door frame in almost a complete rectangle, and then chisel them out. This door is just a pine solid door, but I'll also be making a mini tutorial about the door frame chiseling, just because I kind of think it's a nice little bit of dimension for the front of the house. But yeah, this is the outside. Yeah, let's go on in. So on the inside here, first of all, I've got these pine support beams again on the inside of the door frame. This wall would be kind of empty without them. So I've got that. I've also got another lantern, lamp, up on top. As I started building this house, actually some drifters started appearing, so that solved that problem. But yeah, if you don't want the extra lamp up there and you have a good enough light source, you could use like a banner or a tapestry or something like that to sort of fill in the space and make it look a little less empty. Or you could even put another window or you know, whatever art you want there. It's up to you. Also, to the left of the door as you come in is the hole to the cellar, which actually doesn't have a door in this build, and that's because I'm offended by doors. I'm just kidding. I actually just forgot to put a door down. That's my fault, but you could either use a trapdoor here to make the cellar be actually counted as a cellar by the vintage story mechanics, or you could build a little 1 block wide room. Either up here, you could sort of enclose this little 1 block space and put a door on one of the walls, or you could build it down in the cellar itself so that you like go down the ladder into a 1 block space and then through a door into the cellar. Anyways, so the living space actually is pretty spacious. Obviously plenty of room for storage and stuff. The actual walls of the living space are 7 blocks wide and then 8 blocks long. So yeah, pretty good. Obviously you could put 1,000 chests in the house like I have here, or I actually have the shelf obsessed mod that lets me put even more things on shelves. So you could actually sacrifice this window here and use more of those debarked cedar pine planks to make it just a wall and not a window, and then put in shelves, because Shelf Obsessed mod lets you put just about anything on a shelf, which is super nice. Regardless, there's plenty of room for storage. I've even got some firewood storage over here, and of course a bed. Actually, if you wanted to use the double beds mod, which I really like, and have some floor to ceiling firewood storage on the other side of the fireplace, you could actually just make the house 1 block wider, so 8 by 8 instead of 7 by 8. And really the only change would be that you just need some more of those slanted roof tiles and use those instead of the peak roof tiles. And other than that, the only difference would just be that it's 1 block wider. So then you would actually have room for that firewood storage and a double bed, floor to ceiling. So of course, the main feature here in the house is the fireplace itself. Like I mentioned, I'll be posting a mini tutorial about the fireplace and the chimney and the actual chiseling and mechanics that make the real smoke mod work with it. But here you can see a little bit about how I chiseled the mantle. I actually got inspiration for this mantle design from the Vintage Story forums, specifically a person called Jack Joe O'Neill, so thank you for that, friend. Pretty similar to the door, the block that the actual fire is on is flush with the wall. And then it's just a 1 block hole in the wall. Then I surrounded the hole with cobblestone blocks and then chiseled the mantle from them. So I've continued the trend from the outside of the fireplace and chimney of just sort of removing the edges, so you can see the little corner chiseling there. And then, yeah, so we've got the flat area of the mantle on the bottom. We've made this sort of corners a little bit more rounded, removed the edges, just like on the outside of the chimney. And then we've sort of removed like half of the block for the actual like mantle face, and made a few steps, 3 or 4 steps, and then a little bit of a like little flat area, a little column sort of deal, and a bigger flat area up over top of the fireplace, and then of course the tube up the chimney. But yeah, this fireplace actually is connected to the fireplace down in the cellar. When we go down there in a second, I will show you that. They are both connected, they both work with the real smoke mod, and the fun thing about these is that you can use them with as many floors in a row as you want. I'll explain more about that when we actually get down into the cellar. So actually, let's head down there now. So keep an eye on the fireplace. You'll be able to see that they're stacked on top of each other, directly one on top of the other. The tube part is actually just aesthetics. The actual connected block is inside the fireplace, which you'll see more in the mini tutorial that I mentioned that I will be making about the fireplace. So the actual mechanics and chiseling of the interior of the fireplace that makes the real smoke mod work, I actually figured out after finagling with a few designs based on a post in Reddit by someone named Wolfric Thorson in the Vintage Story subreddit. To be honest, the inspiration for the mantle and the chimney chiseling actually came from some pretty rough to decipher images, like screenshots of the game. So I know that both of my designs are somewhat different from the others, but there's definitely a strong inspiration. If you look them up, you'll for sure be able to see them, and they'll be linked in the description of this video as well, because I do want to give credit to them, as these designs were originally those guys. But I can confirm that the fireplaces work with the real smoke mod and the cellar identification in the game. And actually, the chiseling of the mantle and the interior are the same throughout every fireplace that you would put in a row. And you can put more than just two. This could work for more than just a 2-floor design. You could have a 3,000 floor deep building or a skyscraper or whatever, and have all of those rooms have fireplaces one on top of each other. That works perfectly fine. So yes, speaking of the cellar itself, actually, it is 7 by 7 by 6. So it is actually 6 blocks deep, and then, a square 7 by 7. So as long as you actually have a door on the cellar, it will indeed be considered a cellar, because the game's requirements for a cellar are 7 by 7 by 7. So 7 by 7 by 6 is well within that. There's obviously tons of room for ground or shelf storage as well, so you could use a bunch of the urns, or you could use shelves now that you have your lovely little copper tools. And of course, you could do all of your cooking in the fireplace in the food storage area. That is my preferred way of playing. I don't like running back and forth between food storage and food preparation, so it's just easier to have the fireplace just kind of right there. There's also, of course, plenty of room for firewood storage, so you should be good to go on that. So the floor is actually more of the clay cobblestone, and the walls are sandstone ashlar bricks. Of course, if you didn't feel like getting ashlar bricks, or you want a different look or whatever, you could do whatever you want. I just chose those bricks because it provides a little bit of contrast between the wall and the fireplace, which is kind of the feature of the home, so I wanted it to still stand out. You might notice that actually one of the blocks on the ceiling, the plank's a little off, and that was a problem with my chiseling. It's my own fault. The ceiling is the same planks as the floor above, but I actually chiseled out a small layer because the cellar actually extends outside the footprint of the house above it a little bit, so I had to cover a little bit of those dirt blocks. I would have planks in my front yard if I just replaced them with planks, so that's why I did that. You can or cannot, if you want to. You can just make the house wider. So yeah, guys, that brings us to the end of the build tour for this Copper Age starter house. Hopefully that was pretty enjoyable for you guys. Ultimately, it's a small but practical build that you should be able to make out of materials you can easily find in your area. Most of the materials are things you could even get before you have copper tools, so you could even build this home without the chiseling and planks and shelves, and then just upgrade those items when you get copper. But overall, I hope this tour was helpful, and if anyone has any questions about any part of the build or suggestions for builds you want to see in the future, please comment below. There is a bit of a disappointing lack of content in terms of builds for Vintage Story, especially here on YouTube. So I kind of want to fill in that gap a little bit. I really want to make a pre-clay build as well, sort of like an earthen home, sort of the first house you might build in game, and I really want to do a series of profession-based builds, like a different building for a baker and a blacksmith and tailor, that sort of stuff, mostly to go along with like a villager mod or something like that. But other than that, let me know if you want to see any specific architectural styles, if you want to see a castle, a fort, or like an American colonial house or something like that, or if you want to see some interesting designs for farms or other things like that. I am really looking forward to making some pretty solid building videos and a few mini tutorials. I'm not too hot on the idea of doing really complex building tutorials, but I would be happy to do complex builds and do some build tours just like this video for them. But yeah, I'll be posting the fireplace and front door mini tutorials soon from this build, so keep an eye out for those as well. But yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.